Hello, welcome to the bi-weekly Subspace Developer Sync, where we discuss all the going-ons with developers and community over the last couple of weeks. It's been actually a big, kind of a big couple of weeks. Last week, the long-awaited and much discussed in this call, Gemini 3H did launch. It is not incentivized yet. Yeah, Gemini 3G is still the incentivized testnet, but we have now basically a 50-50 split. So that's great to see people getting prepared for the big happenings this week, which Jim will be talking about in more detail, but moving on to the next phase of the mini space race. Also, administratively, just to note, Nova is not yet enabled on Gemini 3H. We are getting some last minute kind of upgrades in before we go ahead and enable that, but it should happen here hopefully by the end of the week. So with that, Jim, I know you've got quite a bit of stuff happening from the community to discuss today. So go ahead and pass over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, so exciting week at Subspace. Seem to be having quite a few of those recently, which is great. So I'm going to kick off with some hot topics for the community, from the community. I do have to point out that we don't really have many, if any, to be honest, 3G hot topics. We haven't got like a persistent issue that lots of people are experiencing on 3G. So the focus is quite understandably on 3H in my point here. So my first hot topic is that we are seeing many questions about how to run a 3H node. As we expected. And because we expected that, we spent a lot of time actually producing a 3G to 3H migration guide, which is over on the forum. I'm going to try and comment the link on the YouTube video when we distribute. And as I say, Emil's on the call. He spent a lot of time putting that together. It should make things nice and easy. And also related to that, please note that on the official docs, on the docs.subspace.network website, there's a toggle in the top right which takes you from latest to pre-release, and if you go to pre-release, you're on the 3H specific version. So you'll see that there are different run commands all documented there. We have been linking it in the release announcement, but I know that it's people might be following bookmarks, just to make you aware of that. As we switch over to 3H, we're going to unify the two versions, obviously, later on in the week. Another recurring theme has been farmers on 3H reporting that solution was ignored, likely because farmer was too slow, and also proving for solution skip due to farming time limit. We do know why. Nazar, do you want to give us a bit of an explanation on what's going on there, please?
Yes. So the network 3H started with only Genesis Farmer, the way we call them, maintained by Subspace team, producing blocks. That's the only farmer in the world that can do that right now. And for that reason, the initial solution range of the protocol, which defines how many blocks and how frequently are producing, is set to be equivalent to 1 gigabyte of space pledged. So that is basically the minimum protocol supports, and that's what Genesis Farmer needs to quickly bootstrap and start producing blocks. What it also means is that anyone who has plotted a few sectors has overwhelming chance to actually produce a solution. It's like almost all sectors, almost all the time that you are plotting will actually be winning. And your farmer will try to prove them. But you can imagine how many sectors you have already plotted, how many solutions you have. It is not realistic that you will be able to plot in time. And that is exactly what the reason suggests. And that was awkward. One workaround for that was to specify farm during initial plotting false, which means until you finish your initial plotting, it will not try to farm. But if you do finish initial plotting, it will try to farm again, which is a problem. And there is a new release today, February 5th, that actually identifies that situation, and it will not try to claim slots until farming is enabled for everyone. So that should fix the problem. Just make sure to upgrade to latest release and you should be good.
Thanks, Nazar. I did write a lengthy explanation of what it is and how to kind of navigate it with the previous versions, but Nazar's fixed it. So if you upgrade to the Febo 5 release, you won't see this, because then everyone is waiting for the farming to be enabled on 3H, which is going to be much more efficient than you having to play around with flags and remembering to remove them. If anyone is interested in taking a deeper look at what Nazar's just explained, there's a post on the forum. If you search for slow plot warning, you should find it, but ultimately this was expected, is expected behavior. Next hot topic, network issues when using the farmer. So there's a very lengthy thread on Discord that has a wealth of information and input from community members who are very knowledgeable about networking. On this issue, the search function in Discord and on the forum are your friends. And we have had reports for a while about networking issues, but what we haven't got is a clear-cut example where kind of everyone running the software is experiencing this issue, which makes it very hard for us to try and debug and work out what's going on. So specifically on 3H, it seems there could have been a networking issue for some farmers, but as I said, we've not been able to get a simple reproducible example to progress things on our side. We do need the community to help us with issues like this. You know, it's all very well saying, oh, I've got a problem, but we need to work out what the pattern is. We need people to really home in on exactly what's going on. If you look on the forum and search for network latency, you'll find that there's been a very recent discussion. In fact, this morning, we found that there's actually a particular ISP as being the root cause for some of the or one of the issues that we've had. So what we've found is that the example that we've really debugged and looked into, it's not an issue with the software. It's actually an ISP issue, but it's interesting. I urge people to go over and check out the thread, because there's a kind of a history of commands you can run to try and find out exactly where your bottleneck is. I found it very useful, and it's always an education reading through the debugging process there. Sorry, Nazar, go.
Yeah, so we were basically trying to find the problem source, and for many people they thought that it's the router that is a problem, and that doesn't seem to be the case. So what seems to be happening is that particular user has a pretty beefy gigabit connection both ways from the ISP, but there seems to be some kind of limit on number of connections or rate of connection creation or something like that. And when Subspace is working, it's a peer-to-peer network, so you're not connecting to a single server and pulling a lot of data from it. You are connected to many different farmers across the world to put data from them, and that involves a lot of connection establishment in the process. And it seems like that is a problem. As soon as you shut down the farming software, the networking issues go away. But also interestingly, if you use VPN and tunnel all of those connections through the single connection, that also seems to resolve the problem. So that's how we kind of figured out it's not the number of packets or the bandwidth, it's actually just connections what seems to be the problem. It's not quite clear why the support of ISP wasn't really helpful, but we're still looking if there is something we can change about the behavior of the Subspace software to make it a little bit easier or less likely to hit those limits that some providers seem to impose. And that is like not a singular problem. Like it seems like different people from different parts of the world have it. So maybe there is some kind of, I don't know, standard way to rate limit users or something. I don't know. But that's as much as we were able to figure out so far.
Okay, so using a VPN feels like you're just making it someone else's problem, but you know, it does demonstrate that we're not in the works on my machine camp. We are trying to understand what's going on there, and we're grateful for those who have spent time explaining and really digging in and you know, checking out the commands. But yeah, again, if you check network latency, if you search that on the forum, you'll find a very interesting thread if you are experiencing problems. Unfortunately, I don't have any problems. I don't know why. Also, actually, I noticed that it does tend to be exacerbated by those farmers who are running many farmers. many instances of farmers. So
in that case, you might hit actually router problems. Just depends.
Okay, work in progress. Okay, next topic. Starting on 3H was bumpy. We did expect that because we were seeding data. I'm not sure I expected quite so many people to jump across so quickly, but people were quick to get to voice their problems, of course. It was mentioned explicitly in the mini space race introduction on the forum. And because farmers were super eager to get started on 3H, there were many trying to sync at the same time. We are stoked to see the participation, and I personally read about every single trial and tribulation trying to find these patterns. This experience helps us understand where the bottlenecks lie and will help us refine our approach for a smoother mainnet launch. But I announced it earlier last week, sorry. The data is now fully seeded, which is great. I think Nazar seeded 20 gig, and the node I think is running at about 24 gig usage, storage use at the moment. But obviously, those of us who joined 3G early on will understand that because we're not starting with zero, it should mitigate some of the replotting that we're going to expect to see as that blockchain history grows, which a little bit of pain up front, I think, is going to save a lot of pain a little further down the line. We appreciate those who came on that bumpy ride, and if anyone is still experiencing problems, the best thing you can do is to ensure you're running the latest software. We do still see a lot of farmers running the original Jan 31.2 release, 3H release in telemetry. Today we've released Febo 5. Please do upgrade at your earliest convenience. It helps everyone, including us. Oh, it's a long one from ecosystem today. As Jeremy mentioned, we'll be kicking off the liftoff phase of the mini space race on Wednesday, which is super exciting. There will be a community call with a packed agenda. There are a number of interesting community initiatives underway with USDC up for grabs. We'd love to see the community participate in. So we've got the community leaderboard with merch as the prize. You can win a lovely Subspace hat. Memes contest, Ryan spearheading, 3 sets of judges and 3 chances to win. And there's a scavenger hunt that Justin's controlling with a daily cash prize. There's already a Discord event created, so if you click that you're interested, you'll get a reminder, and I'm going to put an announcement out later on today. We hope you can all join us. Okay, I've segued away from hot topics now, of course, because I want to point out that a few of the team, we will be attending ETH Denver at the end of the month. If you'd like to meet up for a chat or just to allow us to put a face to the handle, we'd love to. And if you want to do that, reach out to myself, Jim, on Discord, or email, or our socials, whatever's convenient for you. I would like to highlight issue 2402 in the Mono repo Nazar has opened, which is to support supervisor and sub farmers. Again, I'll try and put the link in the comments on this video on YouTube. It's aimed at those who want to support multi-farmer environments. And there was a discussion this morning. There were community members who weren't aware of this. So I'm going to try and do better there. But adding your thumbs up to the issues on GitHub is the best way to help us understand how you, the community, prioritize our bug fix and feature roadmaps. And we will be releasing a refreshed Space Acres feedback survey this week to understand what is important to users and non-users. We're interested in hearing why you don't fancy using Space Acres. And I just want to say that I switched at the weekend and it's going great. Right, finally, please remember that we have an ongoing contribution contest. It rewards developer community members for their merged pull requests against a number of project repositories, which include the main Subspace monorepo where the advanced CLI and the core protocol lives, Pulsar, which is our friendlier command line client, Space Acres, just mentioned that, our increasingly popular GUI farmer client. And apart from the fact that there is 1,000 USDC available for developers in the prize pool each month, it's a really excellent way to get noticed if you're considering applying for a job with us. We have a number of good first issues organized for those who want to take a look at them and see if anything jumps out and grabs hold of you. There are full details on the forum. Searching for contribution will get you to the post in question. And if anyone does want to make a deeper contribution, we'd be very happy to work out an incentivization structure that keeps everyone happy. Reach out to myself or Emil in the first instance, and let's see how we can all drive the project forward together. Thank you. That's the ecosystem update. I feel like I've commandeered the call. Sorry, Jeremy.
We'll call this the ecosystem sync from now on. No, that's great. I mean, the goal of this call is really to share with the ecosystem all the work that we're doing, and so it's great having you commandeer the call. I just want to highlight Space Acres once more. There is a lot of, I was just going through the repo, there are a lot of good first issues in that repo. And I know Nazar has quite a vision for how he'd like to see that. But Nazar also has lots of responsibilities outside of Space Acres in getting Subspace mono repo and us to mainnet. So we would love to see community contributions, as Jim highlighted. You know, it's a great way to get noticed for a job if you're looking for a job here. And, you know, reach out with deeper contributions, working out a more creative incentivization structure. I think we're very open to. So, yep. Speaking of things like Space Acres, which makes a beautiful farmer UX, an easy one, there's been a lot of other things kind of under the hood happening in the last month. Nazar, you want to talk about some of the kind of highlights from farming UX improvements?
Yeah. So on the monorepo, like advanced CLI, the way we call them, side, and more generally, like it also propagates to Pulsar and Space Acres, like on fundamental level. We have several changes that landed either late in 3G or in 3H. One of them is the change to how you start Farmer. So the old behavior was you need to sync your node before you can do anything on the farmer side. Now that's no longer the case. In the process of startup, node will actually initiate sync from DSN, which means it will try to identify what is the archived history of the blockchain, and then it will try to sync that history. But since we already know what the history is, that is basically sufficient for us to download all of the history. And by extension, farmer can actually use that information to know what is the up-to-date history so they can plot without plotting expired sectors. And they can also verify all of the pieces because, again, we know the history. So now farmer, when it starts, it will actually sync the piece cache first, and then it will start plotting right away before the node is ready. So ideally, by the time the node is synced, you already have several sectors plotted and you can farm right away, which is a better experience. We can better utilize resources. So that's great. In terms of utilization of resources, there were some reports earlier that on bigger CPUs like server CPUs, the CPU usage is actually not very high, or it might be high, but it's not as fast as it could be with some custom settings. So I think we resolved that particular situation on AMD processors, so like EPYC, Threadripper, even desktop like 16-core CPUs, by looking at the kind of topology of the CPU, like what it looks inside, and then identifying that if we take different parts of the CPU and run multiple instances of encoding for sectors on different clusters of CPU cores in a particular way, then we can actually leverage more of the capabilities of the CPU rather than doing one encoding and let the CPU and operating system to figure out how to spread it across cores. So that was ongoing kind of work. Initially started with NUMA support, and then it turns out on desktop CPUs there is no NUMA, but there is actually still way to leverage that. So we looked further into L3 caches, and basically we found, I think, a pretty good way. I don't think anyone has found a way to run it faster than the default behavior. assuming you have enough disks connected to the farmer. If you don't, then there are some trade-offs. What we didn't look into yet quite as much is Intel CPUs like Xeons. I believe there is a way to run it faster than the default, but we need some data from community. So if you have, let's say, 56 core CPU and you've experimented running 1 encoding, 2 encoding, 10 encodings, if you found the sweet spot, the most efficient way, let us know. Post on the forum, tell us what CPU you have, what parameters you were using. Ideally, we would make it such that you just run it and it just works the most efficient way without you need to worry about it. However, if you do really want to tinker with it, there are many CLI options on the farmer side that you can use to specify specific cores you want to use for specific encodings. You can do quite a bit with it. When transitioning to 3H, we looked again at the way you run the node and found that there are many parameters which are not really subspace specific, and we have simplified many of them. There is actually one more simplification in today's release, February 5th, that removes 2 more parameters you need to specify every time. So it is a breaking change, but hopefully those who were with us for a long time appreciate the nicer interface there. Some of the upcoming changes will include utilizing unplotted space for caching purposes. So this primarily affects smaller farmers. Let's say you have 1 terabyte, which we consider a normal size, like not very huge. The way Farmer is designed, it is trying to use 1% of the space for caching purposes. So in case of 1 terabyte, it'll be just 10 gigabytes. And the 10 gigabytes is really not that much comparing to the history that, like, on 3H start, we already have over 40 gigabytes of the archived history. So like 20 gigabytes of the history of the blockchain twice after ratio coding. So you will only store like a small fraction. Everything else you will have to download from the network. And if you have a terabyte, you will obviously replot that history a few times, and you will be pulling pieces from the network that you already have, wasting bandwidth and time. But we can actually take unplotted yet space and put pieces that you have downloaded there just in case, and you can pull it from there faster. So that's something that will be coming later, maybe like this month, and should improve farming process for the smaller farmers. We're also looking into implementing this like supervisor and some farmer architecture where you can run like farmers that do not reach to peer-to-peer network on different machines and just like combine them, kind of like your private pool. There are also some changes that will be even more interesting on the Pulsar and Space Acre side. For example, on the Pulsar and Space Acres, the caching mechanism is even better. Since we have node and farmer in the same process, we can actually use farmer's cache to sync the node. So like, remember, we are syncing node and piece cache at the same time. And let's say you have downloaded some pieces, you started importing blocks, and you're still downloading some pieces for the caching purposes. So then if either of them downloads some pieces, we can intercept them and store. And then if the other one needs those pieces, we can actually restore it from cache. So we can shrink the time of, let's say, full sync on the node and full sync on the piece cache if you have a lot of space, to basically half in terms of bandwidth and time, which is very nice and not really possible in terms, like, not nicely possible in case of separate node and farmer, but we have these like aggregated applications that is much better. Yeah, and if you want something like really easy to use on SpaceAker side, you can actually have a lot of visual indicators about what your farm is doing, like what you are plotting, what you're proving, how fast you are, what is the estimated time of the end of the process. You can see how many sectors you have expired and things like that. Many of those indicators are also propagated into metrics. Yes, on 3H Farmer, we do have metrics. That includes both like general peer-to-peer network insights things and farmer specific. So you can see how many sectors you've replotted, how many sectors, how much time it takes for each sector, the averages, things of that nature. And we expect some community members, they already promised us, they will work on Grafana dashboard. So hopefully soon you will be able to go to the Grafana dashboards and just pull the dashboard from there and point to your farmer and see all of the nice visual graphs about how your farm is doing. So overall, a lot of interesting things were happening, and we are not stopping. We constantly look for feedback, as Jim mentioned. on the forum and on Discord. So if you have ideas or you know how make things work better, do let us know and we'll take that into consideration.
I believe we have a milestone called ProtocolUX Improvements or
We
something.
we do. It's something I'd like someone to contribute to on the community side, but those are like really deep technical things for the most part. But you can kind of look into there for what's coming. Maybe not very soon, but eventually. And yeah, if you have any ideas, we will be adding them to there.
And to the point Jim made earlier, if you really like an idea that you see on there, go and give it a thumbs up. That'll help influence how we prioritize.
Yeah, plus please not comments, just thumbs up, reaction on the message.
So continuing with UX improvements, Shamil, I know you're beginning work on yet to be named, I don't know, subspace warp sync, fast sync, something that indicates that you'll be able to sync much quicker. So Shamil, you want to give a quick overview where we are with that and what's coming?
Yes, we started to work on that fast sync for Subspace node. Basically, it will enable for nodes to skip downloading all the existing blocks and download only the latest block using DSN, and then downloads its state associated with this block. So we expect it will be basically much faster and consume a lot of much less bandwidth from your network. Probably it could be measured in orders of magnitude, especially on matured network. There are a lot of subtasks for that. For example, how to prove that we get the correct state. So we have work to do on that direction.
Great. So also along UX necessities, I guess, is as we move towards mainnet and having a useful domain in Nova and being able to go do things like DeFi or all the normal things you do on your EVM, it's going to be really important to be able to get some credits there from consensus. So I know Ved has been hard at work in getting this implemented in a secure way. We call this cross-domain messaging or cross-domain transfers, but it also includes consensus. So Ved, you want to kind of give an update where we're at on that?
Yeah. Hey everyone. So we've been recently working on. So okay, if you've noticed our previous things so far, we've spoke much about MMRs, Merkle Mountain Ranges, and how we are using to prove something on domains using our consensus chain. So this ideally is kind of like a stepping stone for that, like where we use. So the MMR is currently up and running in Gemini 3 Edge. If you'd like to prove something on consensus chain, you can pretty much generate those proofs and use however you like it. The next step for that would be to use those proofs to actually prove the transfer of funds from consensus chain to domains or between domains as well, or back up to the consensus chain. So we are currently in the process of updating our XTM, which was using a different proof mechanism before Gemini 3H, before MMR came in. And we are trying to adapt the XTM to use the MMR proofs, which is much more secure in the sense like we made some assumptions that might not hold. With MMR, those assumptions will strictly hold. So we are in the work of getting that up. XGM is not currently enabled. Even if domains start right now on Gemini 3 Edge, it won't be immediately enabled. It would be enabled over a runtime upgrade in the next coming days or weeks, how quick we are at implementing it. But we are really going to implement it faster and get it out there. Yeah, that's pretty much on the XGM side.
Thank you, Ved. Finally, with Gemini 3G, there was a missing component for much of the time in kind of the user experience, and that was Pulsar. I don't think we actually had a fully working Pulsar till near the end of 3G. Hoping we have better news about 3H. Parth.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So with Gemini 3G, there was a configuration difference where we accidentally turned off subspace block relay in Pulsar. As a result of this, while DSN sync was working fine, it was not able to sync to the tip and practically unusable. Uh, we have fixed that issue and also fixed another issue that came up in Gemini 3G. We right now we have an experimental build of Gemini 3H of Pulsar running, and it's syncing and plotting fine. After we iron out some few minor to-dos there, we will be able to release a new version of Pulsar compatible with Gemini 3H really soon this week.
That is great to hear. I'm sure there will be many users excited to have Pulsar back. And we can see some competition maybe with Space Acres and Pulsar. We get some friendly competition out there. So. All right. Well, that was a lot. As a matter of fact, I think we went a few minutes over here. So we appreciate everybody's time and everybody here who contributed to the updates. We will see everyone back here in 2 weeks. Thanks.